Cool. Hello, everyone. Let's create a map from nothing. Just kidding. We'll be creating it from the Mapbox Streets V8 tile set. And the purpose of creating a map from blank rather than from the templates is to really get to understand the data and like what you're actually mapping. This is kind of more of just like a good exercise to learn more about the tile set and the data that Mapbox has curated. This way you can really kind of understand what's going on. And when you do create a map from either streets or outdoors or basic, just having a better knowledge and understanding of what the tile set is and what that data that you're actually styling is will just give you kind of a better understanding and more control over what you're doing. So to get started, we are on the styles page of Mapbox Studio. And the first thing we'll do is we will select a new style. In this pop-up, it gives us a bunch of different map templates that we can start from, but we're actually going to scroll down and click blank. As you can see here on the right side, there is nothing on this map. It really is blank. And we'll click customize blank to jump into the studio editor. Great, so this is Mapbox Studio, but it's completely blank, and right now it's this checkered pattern because the background layer is set to 0 for opacity. You can change the color this right now by just kind of turning the opacity up, and you'll see now that it's black. Usually land might be a different color, maybe a gray or a beige or something like that. Let's set ours to a light gray. Now, one of the first things that I like to add in a blank style is the water. This just kind of helps orient myself so I know where I am, kind of what data I'm looking at. So to do that, we will click this Add New Layer button on the left side. And then we're going to look for the Mapbox Streets V8 dataset. You can just type in V8 and look for the water layer. So just by adding this, you can kind of already see like the world start to fill in. And then we'll click Style. And you can set it to a blue that you like, maybe a light blue or a dark blue, kind of whatever fits. So now I at least have like a very nice outline of the world. I can tell that like this is the United States, this is Europe, and I can start kind of like drilling in a little bit more granularly. So to do that, let's add some more data. And now when we click the new layer button, because we already have the Mapbox Streets V8 tile set loaded with the water, we can see all of the data in Mapbox Streets V8 kind of in this X-ray mode. And we can look around, kind of see what data is available. So you can see like there's quite a lot of data popping up. These are just some roads in Germany. And as we dig in a bit deeper into a city, we can see that there's all kinds of data. There's a bunch of points of interest. There's a bunch of information on whether a street is a one-way or if there's a stoplight there. So there's a lot of data going on in here. And kind of, like I was saying at the beginning, the process of creating a style from blank is to really understand what that data is and where it falls in the Mapbox Streets V8 tile set. So to kind of further orient ourselves inside of a city, let's add a road network. Very similar to how we added water. We found it in the Mapbox Streets V8 tile set and we clicked road. It is currently the type line. So if I were to click style, we would see all of these lines. And then we can also filter for different types of data. Right now, I'm gonna jump into San Francisco because I'm a little bit more oriented in there than I am in Germany. So the green you see here now are all the visible features that are in the source layer road for this tile set. Right now you can see that there are roads within the streets of San Francisco, but you can also see that there's ferryways. So if you wanted to filter out for your only only land roads, you could go to filter and then create filter and then class right here. And then we want to find ferry. You can click on ferry. And now this is saying when the data is ferry, then it'll show everything there. But we actually want to do when the data is not ferry. So it's everything except for ferries. And then we'll click done. If there's anything else that you wanted to not show in Mapbox in this part of the data, for example, you can see here there's a lot of like minor roads showing up, very like small pedestrian pathways. You could explore the class list a bit further, and it's all in here, everything that's available, from Gulf to primary to street to path. And if these names sound a little bit arbitrary, that's okay. We have the Mapbox Streets V8 documentation that lays out a description for each of these. By no means should you feel like you have to memorize all of these. I use Mapbox Studio every single day, and I don't know all of these. The documentation is very helpful. It's very thorough. And also, the Studio editor is it's so great because you can just kind of click on something if you wanted to know what it was, and you can see all of its details. Cool. So with that, let's continue. And so these are all the roads except for ferries. So let's move over to the style part of this data. And you can see right now it just kind of comes up as, by default, just some black lines. But let's say we wanted to make kind of like motorways, like larger intersections, stand out a bit more. We can do that in a couple different ways. One of them being changing the color. So if we look at our list of options right here, we can style across a zoom range. So that would mean the color could be different here. And then as we zoom in, it could change to a different color. We can style across a data range. This might be more important for something that had like a numerical scale to it. And then this last one that is the one that we're going to use is style with data conditions. And then what a data condition is very similar to what the filter we just used was, or it works very similarly in that we will choose a class, and then we'll look for motorway, and let's also select motorway link. Motorway link connects like the freeways to the streets, so just kind of like that last section of going off and on. So we'll use these two, and we can color them to be this orangey color. Cool. So now we have all of our roads data, but we do have the motorways styled a little bit differently. In addition to color, we can also change things like width. And doing a very similar thing, styling by the data conditions, we can look again for motorway in the class and select motorway and motorway link, and we can change their width to be 2. So now these larger roads are a bit more prominent on the map style, and we can click done. So right now we only have 3 layers on the map. We have the background color, the water, and we have roads. But even just with like 3 layers, you can already tell like that this is San Francisco, and there's a lot of data like already very rich and apparent of what's going on, and it definitely helps kind of orient yourself. There is definitely still like a lot that you can really fine tune for like these areas. I believe this is like a complicated railway. But yeah, like as I was saying, this is just a great like exercise to go through and really understand the data. You can keep experimenting by clicking on the Mapbox Streets V8 tile set and looking through like what data is available. So I can see from here that there's there's road names, there's neighborhoods, there's points of interest, and then yeah, as I zoom in further, just like that richness and abundance of data really shows through. And then in this layers list, very similar to like the roads layers, like you don't need to learn and memorize every single piece of these. They are intelligibly named, which is helpful. But the Mapbox Streets V8 documentation has everything listed out. But this is a great way, even if you just wanted to kind of explore the data and see what it was, you could click if on it. Perhaps you maybe don't know what airport label is. Although I guess that one's kind of self-explanatory. But, oh, there's a green dot right here because this is the San Francisco International Airport. And by clicking on that, we can see kind of all the information that we have available for the airport, such as like its Maki icon, the name of it in like 8 different languages, and then in its reference name, which would be SFO, and its size rank. The size rank and filter rank, there's more details in the Mapbox Streets documentation about those, but you can kind of think of them as like the cultural importance and also like the size of popularity of some places. That is a little bit arbitrary, but our data team has done a very good job of kind of going through our data and making sure that's very intelligible and useful to you. But yeah, that's a very quick overview of creating a map style from blank. We only added just a very few amount of layers, but you can tell that like this map is already starting to come together and be something that is intelligible. And we got to see a lot of different parts of the Mapbox Streets V8 tile set and kind of how to understand them and how to look through the data and find exactly what you're looking for and how to style it. Yeah, I don't know. Dom, if there's any questions, if people want to know how to style something specifically, or if I should add another layer and kind of go through that process.
I think a top question is why? Why? Like Mapbox offers so many cool templates. What types of users do style a map from scratch? Like what would motivate somebody to like start with raw data and like instead of working off of a pre-styled template?
Yeah, definitely. And that's a completely valid question. Mapbox Streets templates they're fantastic. The cartographers have done such an amazing job at putting them together, and they are people that like have created the data and really understand the data. I think for mapping, 90% of a map is data, and then the like last 10% is really the design of it. And I think just being really intimate with the data and like understanding what you're mapping out, and like when you change things in the templates, like to know what exactly you're changing and how that affects not just the city that you're looking at that time, but how it affects cities across the entire world, because that's how Mapbox Studio works, is that like you're editing the entire base map. So I think that is probably the most significant piece, especially if like you have like a store locator map and you have stores that are like worldwide. You'll want to be able to style it like in a place that you're familiar with, but then you also want to be very aware that like other cities are going to be changing based off of like how you style one particular city, and it is pretty hard to check every single city. So this can also save you some time and just really understand what you're doing fully, I think.
Yeah,
Mapping.
that's cool. From your UC Berkeley community, you studied geography in school. Did you ever do anything like this, or did you use ArcGIS? Like, how do you relate this task to like things that you learned in college?
Yeah, I created a lot of maps in Illustrator for
Really?
my undergrad. Yeah, that was a lot of what I did. A lot of the data would be processed in QGIS, and then we would move to Illustrator to kind of really fine tune it. fine tune the look of it, but I think the bulk of the time is really understanding your data. Um, and then QGIS works very similarly to Studio in that it's like it's a layered process. QGIS does offer a bit more control of like data analysis, while Studio is more for like styling your data.
Hmm.
So does that help answer?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think maybe if you have time for one more question, would you show us the data viewer and like the data explorer again and like point out, I don't know, like if, to somebody who's unfamiliar with those layers, it's probably very disorienting.
Oh yeah.
Maybe do you have any tips on navigating that view of the data?
Yeah, definitely. So to kind of even get in that X-ray mode, since we already have the Mapbox Streets V8 tile set loaded, when we click this Add New Layer button, it will show us everything, all the sources that we have on our map. If we were to have another tile set loaded, that would also appear in the X-ray mode. So just kind of a heads up. But if you only have V8, then you'll see all of the V8 data. And I completely agree that when you like get really close, it's pretty overwhelming, the amount of data that there is. Um,
Hmm.
if there's something that you're not sure about, like let's say you were really interested in, um, oh gosh, I don't even know, in this one, then you could click on it and see that right here, this says POI label at the top. And that's saying that is the source layer of this one. So if you were to click in active sources, you can see that the purple matches the purple right here, and it says POI label. And then if you were to click on that, then it will filter out for all of the points of interest. And now you can only see these ones. You can also just kind of click around and see what everything is. So if I were to click on building, that might actually help more. Then I can start to see all of the buildings present
That's
versus,
cool.
yeah. So you can kind of just like click around and play with it. That's another good way to like style from blank also, is that you just have less data on your map. And you can kind of see what each thing is individually. So
Hmm.
you can see it in X-ray mode, and you can go to style. You can see it in this view, and just kind of play around with it and like really get to understand what you're mapping.
That is awesome. I'm distracted because I'm like trying to set all these systems and keep them going. I think that's it. I think that's all the time we have. And that was fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this. I love seeing kind of like looking at the ugliness of the brand new map. I'm like, oh man, our cartographers do so much work to
Oh yeah.
style all the different road networks and how many components are in a road network. It's like joins and overpasses and
Oh
like
yeah, there's a lot of layers. I think like the bulk of like Mapbox streets or the navigation style might be like 30 or more layers that are all
just
just,
for roads.
yeah, for the bridges, the streets, the tunnels, the ferries. It's a lot of work.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for doing this, and join us next week for Lunchbox at noon Pacific time. Thanks, Madison. Have a good rest of your day.